I was going to have a problem with one because it started spraying lightly, water out of it. So, okay, so now the basement is lower than the ground. And then, I go to put a hose to it to drain it. Well, again, this tank is 39 years old, maybe even 40, right? The spigot is rusted solid. So, I figured if I try to force it, it's going to open up and it's not going to close back, is it? So I decided, okay, how do I drain the tank? So, I open up the hot water vent upstairs or the faucet, and then I slowly figure out, well, gee, now the way it is, I have to remove the thermostat off the hot water tank to get to the heating element. And I went to unscrew it. You think it was a screw-in thermostat? No, it's the one that bolts in with 4 bolts. And big warnings on the hot water tank: don't exceed 4,000 watts.
Oh boy!
Now I go back to the hardware store. The guy laughed at me and he goes, "They don't make those anymore." He looked at that element and he goes, "No, they don't make anything like that anymore." So then me and my wife were traveling for like 2.5 hours going from hardware to hardware store. We happened to luck out and find one hardware store. It had one element. It's probably been sitting there for the last 8 years. And now I bring it home. And the guy told me, well, when you go to remove it, take the 4 bolts out and very lightly with a screwdriver, pry it loose. If you go too much more, you're going to break your hot water tank. Then you got a major problem. So I'm sitting here now trying to remove this element, right? 20 minutes goes by. I'm not making any headway. So I get brave and really tweak it and twist on it, and then it decides to come out. 30 gallons of ice cold water sprays me.
Oh, God.
Now, that was pretty bad. That was cold. I mean, I was like soaking wet. So I then, decide, okay, I'm going to fix it. I put the thermostat in, the heating thing back in. I hook up the electrical wires up, set everything up, right? I go to turn the water on. Well, instead of water going into the hot water tank, guess where it's going? It's flooding the basement now.
Oh, God. That's not a good sign.
Yeah. Well, it was like really flooding the basement fast. Okay, so after 8 kids with the basement, they had a lot of stuff stocked where the water shutoff valve was. So my wife crawls over there. Instead of turning off the water, she turns the pressure up to 80 pounds. So now I am more than soaking wet. Okay, the water is all over, and I'm figuring, oh my God, what am I going to do? I start calling up a plumber. And, hey, no problem. I'll come out and just change the valve for you. But it is Sunday, it was Saturday. So it's going to cost you between $700 and $800 labor.
Oh, my goodness.
And
Wow.
And then my wife goes, okay, if you pay that plumber that much money, don't count on that once a month in the bed.
Oh, my goodness. You were manipulated. I bet you found a way to fix it yourself, didn't you?
Well, I'll tell you what I did. I kept turning the valve back and forth. It wouldn't shut off. So then I figured, okay, well, I can't screw it up anymore, right? And on this valve, it was a like rusted nut that holds the shaft going into the valve. So I sit there and I loosen it up, which was dumb because then the water was really shooting out. and on top of it all off, when my wife thought she was turning the water off, that handle came off.
Oh, my God.
Okay, and she dropped it. Now, again, our part of the basement's finished off. The other part isn't. This is not. And then after having 8 children, through the years, it's piled up with a lot of garbage, what I call garbage, like old dressers, old desks, old whatever, toys and all that stuff piled over there. I had one kid that was really into computers, so it was a whole bunch of computer parts. She's trying to find the valve to shut it off. I'm getting wet, and then I figured, okay, well, now what do I do? And I'm about ready to call the plumber back, and I'm about ready to pay their extortion fee. And I decided, okay, I'm going to tighten that nut back up. Okay, guess what? I tightened it up. The water stopped leaking. I was so ecstatic. Okay,
you were.
And then an hour later, we had hot water. I was so happy. I accomplished something. Then my wife decides to do dishes. Now the kitchen sink all of a sudden quit working.
Oh, my God.
Okay, no water, cold, hot. So thank God for YouTube. I figured out what to do. I'm a big guy. I got a bad leg. I'm underneath the kitchen sink from 11 o'clock at night to 2:30 in the morning. I fixed it. I was happy.
Good for you, man. You got it fixed. Plus, you didn't get garnished your once a month.
Yeah, well, that too. But then my wife goes, well, since you got it fixed, you can do the dishes in the morning.
Well, that was nice of her.
And I said, what? She goes, you can do the dishes. You got it fixed. You got the water going. Now it's your turn to do the dishes. I'm not doing the dishes.
Oh, boy.
I could barely walk. I could barely walk on Monday. That's how sore I was, I mean, bent over and everything on that hot water tank for hours and hours. We're talking about, it took from like 9 o'clock in the morning to who knows what type of, I think 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon before I got it working. Oh, come on.
They're a pain in the butt. I've done those things before. Before you know it, you're all day and you're in one position and you're about half pull a leg muscle or a back muscle. It gets to you, I know.
Well, I come to a conclusion. If you're not a plumber, don't touch it. But I can see the point. You calling a plumber up at 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon and saying, hey, my basement is being flooded. I can see the dollar signs going in their head,
Oh,
and I said, how much more is it going to be on? Oh, it's not going to be any more. My weekend rate's no more. And then when they hit me with the dollar amount, and that didn't include any parts.
Oh, God. Jesus.
So I'm happy. I got hot water. I got hot water like you wouldn't believe.
And you saved yourself probably $800.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, all happened bad this week. I had something good happen.
Right. You turned negatives into positives, Gary. That's what it's all about.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, I am not a plumber, so don't anybody ever call me up and ask me any plumbing questions because I wouldn't know the slightest idea. But at least I felt like I accomplished something. Then in some ways, that's more than I feel like even doing the show sometimes. I feel like I don't accomplish anything.
No, you're accomplishing a lot, whether you know it or not. You are. So keep up the good work.
I just want to say shout out to Jimmy. I want to say again, shout out to Timothy, Greg, and Robin out there who's watching on Facebook. So anyway, again, I'm sorry I vented about Ronald Farnham at the beginning of this broadcast and most of it. I just am frustrated with being taken advantage of. And I'm sure all of us and all of you, one way or another, have been taken advantage of. It just kind of made me open my eyes up a lot more that I need to concentrate just doing my show and not worry about, somebody else's shows.
Yep. That's the best medicine right there, buddy. Seriously.
Now, to the people who are still watching that are either not laughing at me or, that signed off because they couldn't take me ramping anymore, tonight we got Susan Shepard on. Now, you're wondering about Susan. She is a good writer. She's a paranormal researcher. She's been on Coast to Coast, Midnight in the Desert. She's coming on our show. We're talking about Mothman and all that stuff again tonight because you know what? People like hearing about Mothman.
Yeah, I do. I love hearing about the Mothman stories. Because I'm only about 100 miles from where that happened in Point Pleasant, so anything Mothman, it's got my attention.
And for the people that didn't catch the show the other night with Jason Offutt, you need to go back and listen to it because he wrote a book on chasing American monsters. And he covers the whole United States of different areas and the type monsters that have been reported in that area. And it was a good show. I really enjoyed having him on. I'm, in fact, have him on again here probably towards the end of June, so we can talk more about these creatures that loom in the dark.
Yeah, that was a good show. I tuned in for that one for sure. I'm looking forward to having him come back and talk about some more cryptids and monsters that are out and about in the woods.
Oh, yeah. So if you know anybody out there, people, that you would like to hear on the show for me to interview, or if you have a paranormal story yourself that you think you can talk about an hour at least and get it, you want to get the message out, or you wrote a book you want to share out there, get a hold of me at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. That's nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. And if it's interesting enough, I'll get back to you and we will schedule you to be on the show. Again, for the people out there that might not know about me, you can certainly find us at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. You go onto the website, you scroll down, and you'll see a player. And you click on the player, and you can listen to all the past shows, or a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them. And it's not going to cost you 1 cent to listen to any of the shows. When we go live at 7 p.m. Pacific time, it goes live. You can also find us on Speaker Radio. You can find us on iTunes, iHeart, Paranormal Radio, their app. You can find us everywhere on the internet. So, tune in, tell your friends about Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark. And, hey, we're just one happy family.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to all your shows. Tonight's going to be a good one, too.
Oh, yeah. And again, James Kirschbaum, you want to tune into his show at 4 o'clock Pacific West Coast times. And what time is it on Eastern? Your time is 3 hours difference. It is what?
Yeah. 7. That'd be 7 p.m. Eastern time on every Saturday. And this week, my guest will be Patrick Cross. He's got 30 years of experience in paranormal, and he's on TV regularly, so it's going to be a great show.
I think it is, so people need to tune in. Well, hey, James, I'm going to say goodbye to you. All my friends and non-friends out there in Facebook land, I want to say thank you for bearing with me as I've been ramping. I just want to say I enjoy all of you as a listener. It means a lot to me when you listen to my show. It really does. Because without you, I'd just be behind this microphone talking like a parrot, all to myself.
All right, buddy. Have a good one.
Okay. You take care, sir.
Bye-bye.
So anyway, I'm going to jump out of here again. I want to thank all of you that actually watched me here on Facebook Live. Again, I want to apologize. I was just upset today, and I had to vent. If I didn't vent today, I don't know if I would have done another show. I was so fed up today that after all the energy for the last 2 years I put into this and the resources, to be slandered by somebody that is flatly lying and trying to manipulate things, it got to the point where I didn't know if I wanted to do this anymore. And I'm glad that I was able to vent, because you know what? I can't wait for my show tonight. So again, you can find me at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. Also, I'm going to update in the next couple of days who our guests are going to be on next week and the week after on the website. You hit the calendar. Hey, if you feel kind enough and you want to donate a buck or two to help pay for the bandwidth, there is a donation button for PayPal. You can donate a buck or two. It keeps the show free on the internet side. Like I said, the radio stations don't pay me to carry my show. So I carry whatever revenue I make from some of the radio stations that we put our own commercials on, for our advertisers, which I don't share that on the live show on the internet. I want that totally free of advertising. So far everything is covering the expenses of doing the show, but it's as the listeners. Just imagine this: you got a milkshake, right? And you got 4 or 5 of your girlfriends or boyfriends there, and they put a straw in, and they take a sip out of your milkshake. Well, now all these people are drinking your milkshake, and it's going down real fast. The same with bandwidth. Every time a new person listens to the show, it sucks more bandwidth. It costs more money. Comcast, the business side, loves my show because,